496 words about the enduring horror of Sledge's Safehouse. Published on my website, accordionsprout.com, 1st of July, 2024. I mentioned in a previous essay that I've started playing the first Borderlands video game with my girlfriend, and as of this writing, she's become obsessed. This is fun for me because it's given me an excuse to replay Borderlands and remember why I loved it when it first came out. Recently, her character reached the mission where they have to find the key to the mines that's hidden in Sledge's Safehouse, and after listening to her talk about it, I decided to play it myself with her playing backup. Sledge's Safehouse was always creepy, and 2 decades later, it still is. The mission takes place inside of an abandoned corporate installation, a familiar location for most of the Borderlands games, and the level is set up as a maze of hallways, corners, and industrial infrastructure. Rusted and battered pipes jut out from walls. Stacks of garbage fill the corners and floors of rooms. Piles of skulls are left on decrepit and rickety shelves. A mutilated corpse lies on a table with a steel bolt protruding from its neck. And the hallways are littered with graffiti that are often incomprehensible scribbles. I remembered these details, but what I couldn't forget are the sounds. The background music of Sledge's Safehouse is a series of low rumbles, interrupted every few seconds by uncanny string instruments. Besides the sheer discomfort this track creates, the player is greeted immediately by the sounds of bandits who are either taunting the player or psychos who giggle and cackle, waiting for me to appear around a corner. The labyrinthian quality of the level design makes it so that moving just an inch can trigger enemies to become aware of me, and before I even have time to recover and regroup from the last fight, there are swarms of NPCs attacking me. A broken claptrap lies nearby, crying and pleading for help. And while this overly dramatic sound is portrayed as funny, it only further builds a discomforting atmosphere. Eventually, I enter a large arena where I fight a massive, quote, roid-rage psycho who is 3 times my size and acquire the key. Typically, this is where the conflict would end. But now, I have to fight my way back through the maze, and there are more cackles echoing from the dark. Borderlands as a series became known for its unique brand of irreverent humor, and there's plenty of it in the first game. But hindsight and reevaluation has allowed me to see how the first game was as much about the horror of Pandora as it was about making players laugh. Sledge's Safehouse is designed to attack the player's perception and challenge their conviction to move forward. It's also a reminder that Pandora is a planet full of broken people. Between the eviscerated corpse left on a table and psychos giggling and growling off camera, I remembered that Borderlands skirted the line between action, adventure, and horror. And sometimes, it was just horror. Joshua Jammer Smith, 1st of July, 2024. Howdy, I'm Jammer. So, first off, thanks for listening. Seriously, as always, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Now, the boring stuff as always, if you liked this video, please like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. It helps the channel. It helps me because it lets me see people are actually listening to these and want to keep watching them. And, you know, it helps me get close to whatever the algorithm is on YouTube these days. Though, honestly, I could care less at this point. I just like seeing that people are reacting to the video. That matters to me far more than any of that other stupid YouTube stuff. But, hey, if you want to do it, it would help. Likewise, if you like the channel, if you like my writing, if you like my visual art, what have you, please consider signing up for my Patreon. There's a link in the description section below, but I'll also say it's patreon.com/jammerdraws, and it is literally 1 tier, and it is $1 a month. So, that's it. If you've got $1 this month and you like what I'm doing, please throw a couple pennies in my hat. Likewise, if you want to do a whole year, you're welcome to do that. Or if you'd like to do just a one-time donation, I will be happy to accept anything and everything I can get. But, as always, no pressure. It's up to you. Now, getting to the actual cool, interesting stuff, Sledge's Safehouse messed me up the first time I played it, and literally decades later, it still messes me up. Like, there's tons of areas within the first Borderlands video game that are disturbing and unsettling just because of the context. I mean, anytime you like drive into a bandit camp, you'll inevitably see skulls just like sitting on top of boxes, or you'll see big you'll see eviscerated corpses, you'll see like arms and legs that have clearly been cut off or blown off and are now being held up as trophies and stuff. And the bandits and psychos are always laughing and cackling maniacally and saying how they're going to kill you, it's time to die. And then, of course, the psychos running up to you going like, strip the flesh, salt to the wound. It's fun. And honestly, I really miss that Borderlands. I hope whatever Borderlands 4 is going to be tries to bring back some of that energy. I can hope, but at this point, I'm not really holding out for anything else. But Sledge's Safehouse, like I pointed out here in the essay, was different because I suspect part of the reason was it was in a contained space. Like, there's tons of areas in the game where players are working within a house or a cabin or something like that, or even like a military facility, but there's never this intense claustrophobia like there is in Sledge's Safehouse. Like, again, it's very much a maze because the player is never given a lot of room for maneuverability. And then, like I pointed out in the essay, you have the psychos who are like giggling and growling off into the side. And then you hear the bandits saying, like, making jokes about, hey, come on out, we're going to kill you. It's far more distinct than that. But the point is, you immediately become aware, painfully so, of how small a space that your character is working in. And I suspect another aspect of this is the first-person shooter design of Borderlands, because since you are working from an entirely first-person perspective, you're not able to see enemies sneaking up behind you the way you would in, say, like a third-person shooter game, like, say, Red Dead Redemption, or sometimes some of the early Resident Evil games. You can only see what's in your immediate peripheral vision. And honestly, one of the experiences regularly of playing Borderlands is suddenly watching the screen fill up with red because you've been hit or shot, and suddenly turn around and discover, oh, wow, there's a bruiser right next to me. But with Sledge's Safehouse, it becomes like playing a horror game because, again, enemies will just suddenly pop out from around a corner and suddenly you've got to fight them and you're already on edge, or at least I was on edge when I was playing this game because I didn't know what the flip was going to happen. And then, beautifully executed, is the music. In the original essay, I posted a hyperlink to a video on YouTube for the background music for Sledge's Safehouse. I mean, honestly, you could just go to the search bar, type in Sledge's Safehouse background music, and you'll get it. But if I remember to do it, I'll also post a link in the description section below. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. Just listen to a couple of minutes of it. Like I said, it's incredibly atmospheric. It's just a series of really tense, just low rumbles that will then occasionally be interrupted by this. I say it's string. I am awful when talking about music because I never got properly trained for it. So I'm not going to try to sit down and explicate point by point what's happening. All I can say is there is something that resembles a string instrument, and it plays just these kind of uncanny notes, and it all is working together to create this unsettling experience that I can still summon and talk about years after playing the game. I mean, to be fair, I've played Borderlands pretty regularly for years at this point. But when I think about the first Borderlands, one of the most frightening experiences is Sledge's Safehouse. I would argue maybe the first fight with Nine Toes, if it's like the first time you're playing the game, can also be kind of creepy. But Sledge's Safehouse, for whatever reason, for all the host of reasons that I've provided up here, I think is one of the few areas where this crazy action science fiction shooter game decided to push the genre or experiment a little bit and create a sensation that's just genuinely unsettling. And it's a shame because narratively it works. Pandora, if you actually dig into the lore of the game and like And you also have to play a little bit of Borderlands 2 to also get some of this. But as you learn, it was originally a mining settlement. It was a lot of scientists and workers who had come to benefit various corporations that were working on trying to yield precious resources. And then when it became unprofitable, the corporations just left. And when I mean left, as in they left and left all of the workers on the planet. Obviously, that's going to mess people up. And if you see, or if you play Borderlands, you will observe quickly how demented and psychotic the people of this planet have become. To quote Patricia Tanis, we're all broken because of them. There's a really, really interesting commentary there about, the basics of corporate greed, manipulation of the individual, right of workers, all this stuff. But even just at the most basic human level, the lack of empathy has driven all of these people insane and are performing acts that are just, simply put, atrocities. And it's in Sledge's Safehouse where you can really feel and really see that. Because, yes, the outer bases of bandits have just piles of skulls and body parts, and it's gross, but it's very much tongue-in-cheek Mad Max effect. With Sledge's Safehouse, you hear laughter in the dark while you pass by a corpse that's nailed to a table, and the words "die" are spray-painted along the walls. It's creepy. It creeped me out, and it still creeps me out. But at that point, I don't think there's really much else to say except, dang, it still is such a good moment in this great game, and I wish there was more of it. But with that, I think I have hit the point where I'm starting to ramble now. So, thank you again for listening. I tremendously appreciate it. Go play some video games.